So here's some more about Colorado dog laws. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of dog laws in Colorado, and in the LexisNexis 2019, I just did a search for in the Colorado State Code for all the dog laws, and the top 10 seem to be the most pertinent, but there's like 27 articles, the Constitution, articles in the Code, the State Code, and then the Constitution is the longest Constitution in the United States. So if you want to know Colorado law, you have got to read, a shit ton of stuff. So I'm just going to talk very generally. I'm going to talk specific and then general at the end. So there's a dog worrying livestock law. A dog worrying livestock law. So the threshold to protecting dogs, specifically I want to say that these are the dogs of cattle rustlers, cowboys, and so there's the dog worrying livestock law doesn't even have to be during a cattle drive. If a dog is coming into your property or is barking at the livestock, then that's a crime. The dogs can't even worry the livestock. A domestic dog. So if a domestic dog is in your yard and there is, supposed to be your property, therefore it's supposed to be in the yard, but it's out there in the field barking at the goats and the pigs and the sheep and what other, livestock is out there, that's the threshold. If you're worrying the livestock, don't even worry them. Not attack them, not bite them, not, devour them, cannibalize them, not eat them. Don't even worry them. Don't bark at them meanly. Don't, run around them as if you're going to bite their ankles. Don't even worry them. They don't even have it, cows don't even need to have a single worry in their minds. They need to just be put at ease, just, have a nice, relaxing day. So that's, we're protecting property. Right, the laws pertain to humans, American citizens specifically. So American law refers to American citizens specifically. The humans, man, women, child, not the animals. The animals, their rights stem from the rights of property and whatever natural animal rights, are written in the code. So I think that's important to understand because if you have in Pueblo, Colorado. This happened to me several times, so I'll just tell about the 3 different incidents of shitty dogs. So I was riding my bicycle, and this is just right behind, Ricky Muniz Alley. And as I was riding my bicycle, this tiny little dog comes out, just starts chasing me up the drive. I didn't notice it until I was about, several houses down, but I glanced back, and this little tiny dog is chasing, me, 6-foot man on a bike. And so this just kind of messed with me. I should have reported it, is what I should have done. That's a crime. But I'm just sitting there thinking, like, what will people think, and then how will this be interpreted? And then whenever there's a situation, you have to prove it to the police. Witness testimony, something, but they usually just only give a shit about their observations, not anybody else's. So if you don't have it on camera and you don't know the people, it's going to be hard to convince. Oh, this little dog that I don't want to hurt anything. This is, so that's a crime. That's total bullshit. Also, right at my house, right across from my house, were these 2 cute old couple, okay? So, to have shitty dogs, it's either, A, you're criminal people and you're just savage pieces of shit and you're putting your savagery, you're teaching it to be as savage as you or more. Or you're just a fucking psycho. So these 2 cute old couple, they lived right across from me. They had these big dogs, not a mean dog, wasn't like, some, pit bull kind of, whatever, those, sort of more prone to being dangerous, or the reputation is that they're dangerous. But they were big. They weren't tiny dogs, so they were pretty stocky. And they would stand in the back of the yard when someone would walk by, go bicycle by, or some little, mother with a stroller and a baby. The dogs would rush out to the fence and just yap and bark and try to scare, everything. It's a crime-ridden neighborhood, But then I also, that you're being an asshole. You're being a psycho, man. What a psycho. These two old people, these two old couple, man and woman, in their 60s or 70s, would sit on their porch and just watch their dogs bark at any and everybody that walked by. So, is that a crime? That's not as clear a crime as a dog breaking out of, their chain or breaking out of their yard and chasing you. If I just, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Just put it in any other terms. If there's a little girl, walking by, and you have somebody that runs out and is chasing and is growling and, barking at her and acting like they're going to, when dogs do that, it's very clear what they're saying. The communication, actions is, 1,000 words, or a picture's 1,000 words, but actions, God, that's 1,000,000 words, right? So, they were just psychopaths. They were just total fucking psychopaths sitting on their porch, sitting on their, pedestals, on their thrones, looking down on everybody. And children, I want people to be able to walk and feel safe in my neighborhood. I want people to be visible and to say hi to their neighbor and, be able to walk their dogs, but also, to have some kind of sense of respect, some kind of sense of common courtesy, just being decent, some kind of sense of, maybe this person right here doesn't like that my dog is threatening to bite its, calf muscle and eat it. That's what, dogs are animals, right? So what are they saying when they, are growling at you angrily and chasing you? I want you dead. I want you injured. I want you, I want bad things to happen to you. So I would have been perfectly in my right when I was in that bicycle and this little dog's chasing me to turn around and just kick that dog's head right off of it. Just punt that little dog as far as I could. Would you think you're going to come up to me and try to threaten me and terrorize me? And I guess the reason why I had to think about this, just people are just assholes. They can't empathize with men, or with, I think with men, or maybe they just can't empathize with anybody. If you're a psychopath and you don't realize that having someone's dog, having your dog bark at some neighbor or some friend or just some passer or some peaceful, little child, they would let these dogs bark at children. So, we do need animal rights. It's good that you have, what's his name? Dahmer. So Jeffrey Dahmer went around killing cats. And he started out with cats. He got a sexual thrill from killing them. And then he moved on to humans. So if you do hear about any, human person who's terrorizing, torturing, hurting animals and dogs, if they're, provoking them, or if they're just sadistic and they just love to inflict pain, or if they're a Jeffrey Dahmer and they're just going around killing, animals, be very, very wary of anybody that goes around murdering innocent animals for no reason. At least hunters are going to eat the meat, but just to go around, so don't be a Jeffrey Dahmer, okay? America, don't be a Jeffrey Dahmer. But in the list of priorities, humans have legal rights. Animals are the property of humans. So the rights that animals have are just the extension of the rights of the humans that have legal rights. Now, there's also, natural rights and there's animal rights. So because you're an animal, you have a specific, it's in the code specifically, there's animal rights. There's animal cruelty laws. And so there's, the fact that the livestock, you don't even have to worry, right? So if there was a cow, if you want to, be crystal clear on the Colorado law, it's a crime for that dog to run out and to chase anybody. If a cow was walking in the streets of Pueblo, Colorado, and they're sitting there walking down the street, and a dog comes out chasing a cow and scares the cow and gets the cow to start running, that's a crime under the dog warrior and livestock law. So if we're going to protect cows from not even having to be worried, they don't even have to be worried. And the animal cruelty laws is even, so there's good and bad. There's good and bad, I don't want to say good and bad, but there's like laws that are for the dogs, there's laws against the dogs, there's laws for the humans or against the humans. So it's just that, I guess it's not clear-cut. Colorado law is not clearly in favor of animals, but they're also not against animals. So it's a little bit ambiguous, and there's actually a lot of exemptions. There's a strict liability dog bite law, which is amazing. With the strict liability dog bite law, if a dog bites you, the game's over. That's all she wrote. If a neighbor's dog bites you, you call the police. They're going to pay your medical bills. They're going to go to jail or get charged with, crimes, and they're going to get fined. They could go up to jail for, there's different numbers depending on if it's a misdemeanor, but there's 6th-degree felony. There's a dog bite law that's a 6th-degree felony. So that means you'd be a felon if you let your dog go maul somebody, if you let your dog out and it goes around and, bites somebody or worse, kills them. But definitely violent attacks. So Colorado, immediately, if you are, under this strict liability dog bite law, you could go to jail for 2 years. You could get a $100,000 maximum fine. And then, you'll have a charge on your record. You have to pay $50 license for the microchip if they let you keep the dog. So I would assume maybe if it was like a tiny bite that didn't kill the person, they might let you keep the dog. But if the dog kills somebody, there's no question that dog dies. Right? If a dog kills a human being, a person, an American citizen, even, illegals, I think that there's, the law, illegal people have human rights. They have natural-born human rights. So humans don't have to be eaten by dogs. Humans don't have to be mauled by dogs. It's weird that I even have to say that out loud. So the strict liability dog bite law is very good. It's very good because clearly if there's an owner lets a dog out, and if you catch it or if there's evidence of it, if there's no evidence, if it's less than a dog bite, if it's just like, terrorizing the neighborhood, you have to, there's things that you could do. You could call the other story. I'm getting to this, the exemptions. There's loopholes, though, to the strict liability dog bite law. The last story of Pueblo, so you had the two old couples, psychopaths. They probably were nice to any of their friends and family, and living in a crime-ridden neighborhood, I could understand being scared and having, dogs barking all throughout the night. But during the day when people are just peacefully going for a stroll, going to the park, going to play basketball, going to, have cookouts and shit, you don't need that. You don't need mean, shitty dogs trying to, terrorize and sort of ruin your walk down Main Street. The other thing in Pueblo, so it's basically the same thing, but this dog was real close to me, and when it came out, it came out straight towards me. And I'm just like, riding my bike, just not like pedaling it, but just kind of rolling on through this one part. There's a auto body or a mechanic place. This is right on Lake Avenue, right off of Lake Avenue. So you get off of Lake Avenue, and then there's the auto body place, and then there's this, it had a fence, but it was a big gap in it, so there was no gate, and the dog wasn't chained. And it runs out onto the sidewalk, onto the street, and it starts nipping at my ankles while I'm on a bicycle. And so, a lot of people are such dicks, man. People are such dicks. They, it seems to me like they have no empathy. So if they hear that, oh, what, a dog was chasing you? Well, what were you doing to the dog? It's easier just to condemn people and treat them like shit instead of being like, yeah, that's bullshit. That's a crime. Why don't you either do something about it or, call the law and file some criminal charges? And that's it. So it came out of it, snipping at me, and then I kind of just kicked at it. And then it went back a little bit, and it came back, and then eventually it ran inside. There was another person that walked across the way, that walked around the corner, and it ran back into the yard scared. So, nothing happened except for it came out and it was threatening me. But I felt like, I had a right to kick that dog's head clean off. No, fuck that. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Nobody would accept a grown man chasing a little girl and trying to bite her ankles and trying to do her harm and say that that's acceptable behavior. Jesus Christ, I've known people that just, had, if you call, no, that nobody would accept that. Nobody would accept that. I've had, a lot of things have happened in my life. But essentially, I've known the police to be called when a person was called an asshole who was acting like an asshole, but she's an old woman, so therefore you're not allowed to call an old woman who's acting like an asshole. And then there's also, the bank was trying to take my money, so the bank in, Alamosa, they were trying to take my money. I had a lot of thoughts just streaming out of my, body. But I got, they wanted this, they argued with me, they're being dicks to me, so I was like, just give me my money back, and they said, okay, but we're going to charge you $20. So you're going to steal my, and then they give me a check, so they'll take your money, but they won't ever give you no fucking money. They're thieves, they're a bunch of fucking thieves. This is a Rio Grande bank in Alamosa. So those thieving-ass pieces of shit, they're stealing $20 from me, and I said that this is bullshit. This is bullshit. And that's, I don't even know if I said this is bullshit, but I said, that's not right. Then they said, here, sign this, saying it's okay that we took $20. I'm not going to sign that. And then they had something else for me to sign, and it was all about, essentially, they didn't believe that I knew where I lived. They didn't believe that I knew my own address. Even though I've been in there 5 times, and I give them all my information, a DNA, give them my blood, a bunch of blood work. I give them a retina scan and fingerprints, and it's like, Jesus, after you get all that information, it's just so asymmetrical. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So I just got frustrated with them, and I said that I wasn't going to pay the $20, and I was like, that's bullshit, you're taking my money, $20, you're a thief, you're stealing my money. And she goes, I'm going to call the police. I said, go ahead and do it. And she says, real calmly, he's being belligerent, and the police came. So you're going to sit there and tell me that if a woman, if a white woman is going down the road, and you got a dog trying to bite her and eat her and devour her and murder her and kill her, that nobody would say a word? You're saying that wouldn't be a crime? Bullshit. Bullshit. I mean, the cops aren't consistent, but that's absolute bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. So the dog worrying law I really like. I really like the dog worrying law because you can't even worry the livestock. So that means you can't worry humans either. Nobody should be worried when they go by your yard. Is that dog going to break out and bite me and kill me? There's been lots of kids that get eaten and attacked throughout America because people are stupid with their dogs, and the dogs run out and then they kill the kid. So whatever your dog does, you should be responsible for that dog, just like the livestock. If you own a cow, if you own a cat, whatever that cow or cat does is your responsibility. And in fact, if a dog kills a human, the owner only gets a 6th-degree felony charge. 6th degree, that's the maximum. 6th-degree felony. I think it should be a 1st-degree felony because that's your property. But 6th-degree felony, I guess they're thinking that dog, I don't know, they're showing more compassion for the owner of a dog that went out and murdered somebody. That dog trained it, that dog taught that dog, that owner taught that dog, that owner trained that dog, that owner either gave it its personality or developed into the mean, vicious, dangerous dog that it is. And if it went out and murdered somebody, that's them doing it. That's the owners doing it. So I like the strict liability dog bite law. If a dog bites a man, woman, or child automatically, without question, without delay, you don't pass go, don't collect $200. It's all she wrote. Charges are going to be filed against the perpetuator. Both the owner and the dog are handled. Dog may get put down, get shot. They may have to get muzzled. They may have to get a $50 microchip. They may, they could get executed. If the dog has rabies, they'll be put down. If a dog kills a man, woman, or child, they'll be put down. If there's bodily injury, some owners may get a mulligan, like a single bite. They'll keep the dog, but it'll be regulated. They got to post a sign. They got to muzzle it. It's got to be inside an enclosed building where it can't escape. And like I said, microchip. The owner also, if a person gets bitten by a domestic dog, then immediately criminal charges are filed against the owner. The dog and the owner are handled criminally, but the owner also has to pay the medical bills, the civil fines. So they could be fined and they could go to jail, and they have to pay without even question. Upon a guilty verdict, they're depending on the plea deal that they make. but they're going to pay for the medical expenses of the victim, charged, and possibly go to jail for 2 years or $100 maximum fine. So, I'm glad that there's a strict liability law. It gets kicked in. The 6th-degree felony is not high enough, because if a dog murders, if your dog murders somebody else, that's you who did that. You did that. You have respect for animals, but you don't have respect for humans. And we should love everybody, but if we're going to have priority, humans take priority over animals every time. A dog bites my child, that dog's going to die. If my child bites that dog, no way. No way. There should be charges. Something should happen, right? But you don't hear about that. Humans go around biting people. This is a dog problem. Dogs are very specific. I think people are more empathetic with dogs because they're just dogs, right? They're just acting like animals. You got indecent exposure laws, right? But I was driving down the road and I saw a bunch of horses with their dicks just hanging out right there for everybody to see. And all animals are just running around naked with no clothes on, right? Just absolute free as a bird, free as a jaybird, just running around naked. So dogs are just a different, animals are in a different, and then cattle and goats and sheep, those go to the slaughterhouse at the end. They get murdered for our consumption. People, man. People are fucking weird. So, the way that the strict liability law says, it says specifically if there's injury, they make a distinction between serious bodily injury and not serious. And if it's not serious, then you have to prove negligence. It falls under the negligence laws, not the strict liability laws. But under the strict liability laws, it says under 2BII, if the dog demonstrates tendencies that would cause a reasonable person to believe that the dog may inflict bodily or serious bodily injury upon the cause of the death of any person or domestic animal, that's a dangerous dog. If a dog isn't just worrying the livestock, if the dog is worrying the public, like those 2 dogs, with the old couple in Bessemer in Pueblo on Spruce Street, or right there behind Spruce Street, right there perpendicular, there's a dog that ran out. That's a crime, and that's a crime of the owner. And nobody should have to fear that, dogs are going to run out of the yard and attack you. They shouldn't have to fear that anybody's going to run out of the yard to attack you. You don't have a duty to retreat. You can stand your ground against men, against humans. Excuse me. So, if you can stand your ground against humans, of course you should be able to stand your ground against dogs. Man, people are just fucking pricks. I am embarrassed that I ever talked to anybody about any of these issues, because really just talking it out loud by myself here, it's obvious, isn't it? I live in a society where killing 1 or 2 million Iraqi people seems to be fine and dandy. And where cops murder human beings, they don't even get charged with it. And, people want to charge for petty shit, right? Jaywalking or seatbelt or some petty dumb shit. But if you're murdering somebody, if you're part of the elite, or if you're a police officer, you don't even get charged. You don't get a fine. You don't get anything on your record. It was in the newspapers and that's it. That's fucking crazy. So I'm feeling like I have to ask people, can we agree on the big things? Don't go around burning people's houses down. Don't shit in your hand and rub it on people's faces. Don't, the big stuff. So, assault, rape, murder. Don't have sex with kids. Don't be an arsonist. Violence, murder, rape. Stealing. The taking of property, the taking of something that's not yours. So those are the 6. Those are my top 6 evils. And, this keeps getting, evolving, but essentially there's laws on the books for all those. So if you can't say burning someone's house down is immoral, well, you stupid fuck, it is. And it's illegal, you stupid fuck. There's a ton of laws against burning other people's houses down. You can't go around attacking other people. You can't go around biting other people. You can't go around hurting, stealing, robbing, raping, pedophiling, arsoning. You can't go around doing that. So if we can agree on the big things, then I think we have a framework for which we could actually have a real discussion. So I'm just going to get to the loopholes. The loopholes, there's a bunch of them actually. For the strict liability dog bite law, if there is a hunting dog, herding dogs, farm dogs, ranch dogs, they do not ever, no matter if they bite, maim, kill, murder, ever fall under the strict liability dog bite law. Never. They're not even covered under it. So farm dogs, ranch dogs, herding dogs, hunting dogs, it's not that they're allowed to do it. They just aren't going to get hit, hard with all those fines and the microchipping and maybe putting the animal down and giving, $100,000 in fines, paying medical expenses, all that. 2 years in jail. Specifically, they say that the dogs that injure a domestic animal while the dog is working as a hunting dog, as a herding dog, there's also predator control dog on the property or under the control of the dog's owner, or injury or death was to a domestic animal naturally associated with the work of such dog. Now, I've thought about this, and it makes sense. So if you're running cattle and a dog runs out of the yard and it starts worrying the livestock, then their dogs can kill that dog or bark at it or run that dog off. It's a crime. It's a crime. You cannot worry the livestock. Don't even worry them. Don't even harm a little tiny hair on their head. Poor little cow. They need to be protected from the dogs and the vicious dogs that come out to try to bite them. And so hunting dogs, herding dogs, farm dogs, ranch dogs are not under the strict liability dog bite law. And, if it's in the course of their duties. So, it can't, dogs aren't even allowed to go kill wildlife. If there's wildlife that's being killed, then dogs will, the owners, you have to notify that the dog has killed the wildlife within 2 to 5 days. Another weird thing, if a person is a vet, then they're not covered under the strict liability dog bite law. So these are major exceptions. These are major exemptions, i.e. loopholes. So if your dog goes and bites somebody, well, find out if they're a veteran. If they're a veteran, they're not covered. If they're a dog groomer, if they're a humane agency staff person, pro-dog handler, trainer, dog show judge, acting in the performance of their duties, then, and I don't understand this, why wouldn't you want to protect the veterinarians and the dog people and the dog groomers? It seems like they're the ones that are at the most risk of actually getting bitten. Maybe they're saying because they're in the industry, they already know the risk, but I don't get it. I would think that the lawmakers would want to protect the veterinarians just as much as any of us common average citizens. So those are major loopholes. If a dog bites a vet or a dog show judge or a humane agency staff person, they don't fall under the strict dog bite law. If the dog is a farm dog or a herding dog or a hunting dog or a ranch dog, it won't fall under the strict liability dog bite law either. So it's not saying that it could happen or that they're allowed to do it, but just that they won't get hit with a hammer. The hammer of a strict liability. The hammer of the dog bite law. They won't get hit with that big hammer. Now I'm going to mention this here too, and then I'm going to call it a day. But the animal cruelty law punishes wide ranges of things, including abandonment, CRS 18-9-202. It's a crime to intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or even negligently to do any of these: 1, torture, needlessly mutilate or needlessly kill an animal; 2, 3, just overdrive, overwork, overload an animal; torment an animal, deprive an animal of necessary sustenance; unnecessarily or cruelly beat an animal, allow it to be housed in a manner that results in chronic or repeated serious physical harm, carry or confine animals to a car, engage in a sexual act with an animal,